Hello, all you cosmic travelers and wanderers. This is Darlene Grift and K. Melissa Waterman, inviting you to join us today in our episode of Expansion from Within, Exploring Multidimensionality.
Let me introduce you to my friend and dear colleague, Darlene Grift. She is a lifetime experiencer, a medical intuitive, and a multidimensional mediator for over 35 years. She's also an author, an artist, a teacher, and a mentor for spiritually invested people.
And K. Melissa Waterman is my friend and colleague, and she's an intuitive mentor, a spiritual teacher. She also works with energy on many levels. In the past, Melissa has worked with Dr. Joe Dispenza on his research team.
Join us on our journey of meeting multidimensional beings, exploring what it means to be human, and expanding our spiritual evolution. Today, we are going to talk about judgment and about receptivity. I was thinking about how judgment impacts us and what exactly judgment is. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, judgment, I think, is something that a lot of us don't even know that we do because it's an automatic. Sometimes it's our just how we grew up with looking at someone or looking at ourselves in the mirror, and we have a thought, a judgment, an opinion about that is usually negative. So what that does to us is it shuts us down in some way. So we talked about vibration last time and frequency. And so our frequency becomes lower, our vibration becomes lower. Our heart becomes more closed, really, because there's not that joy or excitement or possibility that we allow we are clamping down on that and judging something or someone.
It seems to me that it sort of collapses the space, right? Like an open heart, I have the sense that there's more space, and in the more space, there's more acceptance, there's more understanding. Mm-hmm. In the bigger space, there's a greater ability to reverse roles, to sort of see things from another person's point of view and to give people the benefit of the doubt. But when that space gets small and the heart gets squeezed, then there's just one way. There's only one thought. This is right and this is wrong. Like the whole binary thing comes into play.
Right. And judgment, we can be trained into judgment, but it also, if you start to pull judgment apart, you'll probably find some form of fear under there. Fear of difference, fear of whatever your history has been with that particular thing that you're judging. Usually some form of fear, intrepidation with it.
Right. How do you think judgment impacts others?
Well, I usually tell people on this personal experience is that if you have a judgment about someone that is continued, so you have this line of conversation that you have either with others about that person or within yourself about that person, it locks them in a box. And then energetically, they can't get out because your perception hasn't changed. So when you change your perception, they have more possibility of not being who they are or who you believe them to be. Right. People don't understand that as much, that we have the ability in our non-judgment, when we are not judging someone else and we open it up to have more compassion, looking at them in a way of understanding their history or whatever that is. It's like when we can go there, it gives that person more freedom to change. Otherwise, we lock them in a box. It's like putting them in jail and saying, this is who you are and you will never be any different. And the more people you talk to about that, the more you say to yourself, that's who they are, right? The more they can't get out of it. It's an energetic confinement.
And I'm thinking about cords. It feels like an energetic cord, like you're literally taking something from them. If, the box is so confining, but you're also, I work with people who are trying to break away from family judgment or from anybody judging them. They're trying to pull away from it, and it's heartbreaking, right? They don't really want to break away. They want to stay connected to a person who they love or respect, but the judgment is so harsh. It's so difficult for them to pull away from that box and get some freedom and more space, right? Like the box, when you literally think of an actual box and all the, what is it, 6 walls, it's very confining.
Right.
There's no way to be free. There's no way for the heart not to be squeezed, right?
Right. And they can't be seen as anything else because you literally just froze them in that position.
Right. Right.
And I tell this with, sorry, I tell this with parents who are dealing with children that are having issues. It's like, you can't wait to get on the phone to tell your neighbor or your best friend or your mother or something like that. This is what Johnny did today. And the kids listening, whether they're listening or not, you are making it that they can't change.
Right.
When you stop talking about them and you take a proactive piece of, how you can look at them in a compassionate way, how can you think out of the box to help them in a way so that their behavior can change? Or really, where is the behavior coming from, right? Really looking deeper into where is that behavior stemming from, then they have the possibility of changing. And I've seen that happen over and over again.
Immediately, I think about self-judgment then. I think the two are connected, right? When you judge someone else, you're judging yourself, even if you're unaware. If you're judging yourself, there's that whole pointing outward, 3 fingers pointing back. There's a loop there, I think, of judgment. And so when we're judging ourselves, we're also putting ourselves in a box. We're keeping ourselves in a very tight space that's inaccurate. It's an inaccurate, it's not freedom, it's not love. No,
because your brain, our world is just basically us if everything else is an illusion, right? So if you're putting out there judgment, the brain does not hear that it's someone else. It hears that it's us. So, this person is stupid, or this person is dumb, or this person is heavy, or this person is, whatever those words are, our body interprets it as that must be how we feel about us.
Right.
And then it becomes that loop that you just can't get out of, because you think that you're doing it to someone else. That maybe is a good thing to stop, right? But you don't realize that the reverberation comes back to you.
Right. This reminds me of a psychological tool called Johara's window. Mm-hmm. And Johara's window is, 4 panes of glass. You imagine, a window with 4 panes, Johara's window. The first pane is what you know about you and what I know about you. So if we think of that in terms of judgment, if you are also judging yourself, and I agree with that judgment, then you have the first window. The second window is what I know about you that you don't know about you.
Right.
So if I'm in judgment and you're not, it's still impacting you because I'm holding the energy of it, even if you're not aware. The third window is what you know about you that I don't know about you, right? So, you could be free and I don't see it. I don't see the freedom. Or you could be judging yourself and I don't see the judgment, but it's still there. It's still an energetic. And then the fourth window is what neither one of us know about you, right? It's a fourth window that's just nothing. I just think that whole concept is really very interesting, and in its essence, it's energetic because we're not really able to see this window, but it's really true. There are all kinds of things that you know about me that I don't know about me. Right. There are all kinds of things that I've observed that I might know about you that you don't know.
Right.
That you're aware of, right? So and if we can allow and accept ourselves, allow and accept each other, then the window's pretty irrelevant.
Right. That's that neutrality place. As we're talking, I'm remembering, oh God, how old? It was probably in my early 30s. My kids were young and I was driving and I was having this conversation in my head about what I would tell these people when they found out, right? When they found out whatever that was, that, it's like I'm defending myself in my head, right? And then it dawned on me, like they don't know any of this. Like, how would they ever know any of this? I'm not saying anything. How would they know? And it was just very like an aha moment of, I'm doing this all in my head, in my own judgment of what I would say in defense of myself when they know nothing. And it was a waste of time, really. It's how our energy gets used in a different way when we keep everything inside and we judge ourselves and we think that others may know things that they don't know.
Right. Do you think there is a way, or do you know any tricks for allowing and accepting all of ourselves?
I think that takes time. I think there's so much to each one of us that when something arises, like you have to be aware, you have to want to be aware. Then in that awareness, if we can train ourselves of what feels good and what doesn't, it's like the yes and no with kinesiology, right? What feels good and what doesn't. So if you're a judgmental person, you might not even know that you are, but somebody might have to say to you, well, that's a little judgmental or whatever. Maybe if you can allow that statement to sink in, you can start to take a look at, how does it feel when I say those things about someone else? Like, does it feel good to me? Do I feel joyous? Do I feel happy? Do I feel, do I like myself when I do that? And then it's backing from that and saying, okay, so no, I don't. I can hear myself saying that about that person. And I catch myself in the moment and
Right.
changing it.
I'm
Starts with
remembering,
awareness.
oh, yeah, I think that's exactly right. I'm remembering a good while ago, I think it started with shamanic soul retrievals. I had quite a number, maybe 3 or 4 soul retrievals. And I remember hearing from the shamanic practitioner that I needed to welcome these parts back, that I needed to find a place for them, like to be kind of active in the, like, oh, you left because it was dangerous to be here. Oh, it's not dangerous to be here anymore. And I started a kind of a mantra when I was driving and when I was in the grocery line, standing and waiting, or I had a habit of locking my keys in the car a lot. And so when I was waiting for someone to help me, I would say the words, I love all of me. I welcome all of me. I love all of me. And, as a psychotherapist, I'm always thinking about this concept called projection, which is what I see in you is likely something that I don't like, is
Right.
likely something I have disowned in me.
Yes.
So whenever I see that thing in someone else, say a narcissistic quality, I say, I love my narcissistic self.
Mhm.
I accept my narcissistic self. And so this has been going on for years, where I'm attempting to say, I love all of me. I want all of me back. I accept all of me. And so I had a meditation, I want to say about a year ago. I can't remember what the circumstances were around it, but it was pretty amazing. I was in a place where many of my soul parts returned.
Hmm.
And I was sort of at the door saying, welcome, come on back. And the people that were coming, the beings that were coming, were like hobos. I don't know better. That's probably a politically incorrect thing to say. They were poor and were missing teeth and were dirty and were crouched. They were ill. And it was like, all of me. I have said I love all of me. I want all of me back. I'll take. Oh, I remember what it was around the Black Lives Matter movement. It was, I love my dark. Whatever is dark in me, whatever is unwanted, whatever I have kicked out that I decided was darkness, rather than light. I'm not trying to refer specifically to black versus white skin. I'm saying whatever I chose over all of my lifetimes to push away, I'm saying, no, come back. I had a little campaign going that was called Love Your Dark. Love your dark. Love your dark side, love your dark self, love the dark. And so all of these parts returned. And I have to say that some of it was a little startling. It was like, wow, where are you all going? And in here,
Uh-huh.
how am I going to integrate all of you? And of course, I just kept saying, I love all of me. I love all of me, no matter what it looks like, no matter how dark it is, no matter how much I'm bugged by it in another human. Can I love all of me? And can I love whatever I'm seeing outside of me that is a representation of me, of some aspect of me that I may have disowned.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's a complex concept for people to grasp, and I'm certainly happy to talk about it more, but it's important, I think, if we're going to try and move into more alignment with love and stop thinking half the people on the planet are bad.
Right.
This judgment thing has to end, or at least soften.
At least soften. Yeah, for everybody. It's not just for those that are being judged. It's for everybody. We did this session with Sage, the groups on Sunday, and I know you listened to that. And they brought in malevolent beings, like whoever is that, however they've been judged, the Anunnaki, the reptilians, whoever has been leaders in our society for thousands of years, whatever that was. And like you said, invite them in, like say, we love you, to say that, we are compassionate enough to understand your history, to realize that you've come from here and there and wherever that is. And visually, what happened is they changed. So, when you see the hobo part of you or anything else, the missing teeth, the poor or whatever, when you love that visually in meditations that I find, or just in the way that I work, they change. Right. Visually they morph right in that place, because you just gave them permission to be something that they weren't, or something that you thought that they weren't.
Yeah, and permission to just be who they actually are.
Yeah.
Like to not have that, the judgment sort of like collapses the wave in a way that just, like what you said about the box, it just smashes it down, and it has to be just this thing that the judgment, it's all that can be seen is the judgment.
Right. It's very limiting. And that's not what the field is about. That's not what multidimensionality is about. It's all about, it's limitless.
Right. So how does our view of ourself impact our connection with multidimensional beings?
So we have to be receptive. It's neutrality and receptivity are important. If you have judgment, the likelihood is you're not open enough to receive what you might be able to receive if you weren't so judgmental, right? So it's that figure eight type thing, so if you're open, then that figure eight has more of a flow.
Right.
If you're judgmental, it becomes either you can't even get into receiving anything, depending on how stuck you are in the judgment, right? Or at least it slows down things. So it keeps us disconnected in some way, energetically.
Right. And I think it's safe to say that we all judge something, right? Like is that true, that we're not free of being judgmental completely?
I think we're so ingrained in it that, it's that awareness, it's that, oh, wow, I'm being really judgmental, because it seeps in. It's very, what is the word? It's insidious, it seeps in without you consciously saying, oh, I know I'm being judgmental right now.
Right. I think the judgment toward ourselves is the most insidious, right? We think it's our own voice saying, well, you could have done that better. You should have done that better. You're probably, look how lazy you are, whatever it's saying. We don't really hear it because it's been going on in the little tiny voice in the background for so long. We just think it's us. And then I don't think we get that that's also pointing outward, that actually shows up in the way we subtly think about other people. Recognizing the judgment as much as possible, that's what I heard you say, that being as aware as one can be is super helpful. And then it seems like keeping an eye on it, like developing the awareness, so that I like to tell my clients, like, we're trying to develop an observing ego state. Developing an observing ego state is the fastest way to improve your self-esteem. And it's not necessarily easy to be like, oh, I just thought that person's shirt looked stupid. Isn't that interesting?
Right.
To just get a little distance from it so that you're not just in it. Gosh, that shirt's stupid.
Yeah. Or
Right.
or recognizing, like I'll have people say, well, where did you get that judgment from? Like, oh, this person is that, or this group of people are that, or, it's all of that area of how we say things about others. Where did that come from? And a lot of times you can trace it back. It may not be your opinion. It
Right.
might be a parent's, a teacher's, a friend, it might be something. And so what I have that, if they can recognize that, oh, this might not be mine, it's like, oh, thank you, mom. Thank you, dad, but this is how I feel, so it's another way of changing that energy that's it's in your mind about where you got it.
It feels like what we talked about last time about the goodbye technique. It's sort of like a way to say, oh, I honor that you gave this to me, but goodbye. I'm not
Yeah.
doing that.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye. Yeah. Yeah.
No, not for me.
Right.
Yeah. So say more about how it impacts our connection if we're judgmental and we're not noticing it, or if we're, like I think you and I are probably working pretty good at not being judgmental. Does it cut our ability to connect off? How does it work specifically?
Well, if you live in the judgment, I think that it does. It severely compromises the connection, maybe not severing it, right, but compromising it. Personally, if I have something that comes through, it's usually because I'm in a mood, right? And so I don't care. I don't care if I'm judgmental. I don't care if I do that. But I also know that consciously, on some level, I'm saying I am cut off from spirit. I'm cut off from them because I'm choosing to do this right now, right?
Right.
It's like a rebellious type thing. So I think everybody in some way has some form of judgment.
Right.
It just depends on how often you can hold the neutrality place and how often you can, based on moods, based on what's ever happening in your life in that moment, how to pull yourself back to say, no, I don't want to be that way. Because then we have, if you are judgmental and if you don't think that it won't come back on you.
Right.
It's like instant karma is pretty hefty.
Yeah. I was just thinking of my own belief system where I might say something like, I am completely open and non-judgmental to multidimensional beings. I am interested in all forms. I've had visions of, all kinds of different beings showing up, right? Like the blue orbs and some reptilians. And I don't have any judgment about that. In the beginning I did. If a reptilian showed up, I was frightened. Like,
Right.
oh no, reptilian.
Right.
Call somebody to protect me. And now I have a broader understanding. But I'm still pretty judgmental of myself.
Yeah.
I'm still, so I guess I'm wanting to bridge the gap for people who are feeling open-minded and welcoming to all the people on the planet and all the different nationalities and ethnicities that we have. And they're feeling like they're very, they're to the best of their ability being open. But if they're still holding the self-loathing or the just self-disappointment, self-disapproval, that's probably impacting the connection, but in a more subtle way. Do you think that's true?
I don't know if it's in a more subtle way. It depends. It's another way. If you take a look at, okay, I'm fine with everybody and everything on the outside, but you have those places within you that you say, well, I wish I was smarter, or, I'm not so great at this, or whatever feels like it's important to you. This is where timelines come in as well. This is where identification of timelines can come in, because you probably have it in this particular lifetime, because there's always a thread from whatever timelines you're carrying that will come into this lifetime. They just don't appear out of the blue and you never heard of them before, right? So you take that judgment and you say, okay, so this is how my family viewed it, or this is what my mother used to always say about me, like you're really stupid, or you're really dumb, or what's that saying? When God gave brains, you were behind the door. I think they used to say to to some people, so it's like you grow up with that in some way, right? But where does that originate from? That may be in this lifetime, but if it really hangs on and you can't release it in the way that we're talking about, you might need to revisit, is there another lifetime where maybe I misused my intellect? Maybe, maybe I did something about that, to someone, or maybe I was a deaf mute, or maybe I was judged for that, so where does it originate from, so that then you can move into the techniques to clear that.
Mhm, mhm. What would you say about receiving from others? Basically, the question is, how are receiving and receptivity connected? Like, if receptivity is about being open, how do we talk about whether we're really open? Like, do we receive from others? Like, just talk about that connection a little bit.
Well, I think for some people, receiving from others, they're more givers. So receiving feels uncomfortable, it feels embarrassing, sometimes it feels shameful. You don't know how to accept it. You don't know how to allow it graciously or at all, like, no, I don't need that. Thank you, but no, I don't need that. You push it away. That also is a severing. That's also of a cutting off of some kind of energy that is going towards you that you don't believe you deserve, or from wherever that starts.
Yeah, I completely understand. I'm currently in the middle of that.
Yes.
I'm really working the receptivity and allowing. There's such joy when we give. Like,
Yeah.
it's such a fun thing to give to other people when they're open, right? When they're open to just being like, wow, thank you. It feels so, I don't know, there's oxytocin involved. I'm pretty sure it's like a connection that we make with that person. I can turn it on myself. Like, if I'm having trouble receiving, I'm actually keeping them from feeling that joy. If I'm rejecting, when I've tried to give somebody something and they're like, oh, no. It's like, oh, wait, what do I do with it? Like, this is my fun thing I want to share with you. And now I'm going to put it where? Like, I don't have anything to do with it. I don't have a place for it. So I'm, personally in the middle of allowing the receiving process and reminding myself that receiving comes from the universe through humans.
Yes. Yeah, because how else would we get it on a regular basis? That's true.
Right, but that helps me to not just think, oh, now I owe something to somebody, or that there's something I have to do back. It's like, there is a continuous flow of energy that I'm happy to give, and it's a beautiful infinity symbol where I can also receive. Sometimes breathing is the only way to open enough space for the receiving to come in. Just taking a moment and remembering that receiving is in everybody's highest interest, not just you, not just the receiver, but the giver as well. Like, you're going to breathe some space so that they can feel the joy of giving something.
Right. Look at compliments.
Right.
When growing up, it was horrible to hear somebody say something like, oh, I really like that. Or, it would feel like I was too visible. I was too out there. It was, there was a hidden part of me that liked it, but the outside part of me was not happy with it, or the most uncomfortable was having somebody say, oh, I love you. I could never get those words out. It would be, you too. You too was safe, because that was just too vulnerable. Right. So it's the opposite of judgmental. You might feel too open, too vulnerable to certain things that are uncomfortable to hear about yourself. And yet you still have to work through them.
Right. So one of the things on the paper is for our listeners to think about, what percentage of the time are they giving? And what percentage of the time are they receiving?
Right.
And like,
do they ask?
Oh boy, now you're in it.
They ask to have something, it's a whole other thing of, if you, for those that, and it's a lot, well, I guess it's a fair share of men and women, but I see a lot of women that I can do it all. And I can do it all, and I can keep doing it all until they end up in burnout, but they don't ask for help.
Well, it's an entirely different thing. If you want to give me something, I've
Yeah.
got to figure out how to breathe and let you give it to me.
Right.
I've got to ask you for it and then receive it. Like, I got to trust you big time. If I'm going to ask you, I have to actually trust that you're going to say no if it's not okay for you.
That's right.
And I don't think overall people trust that the other person we're asking is actually going to take care of themselves and be kind. Are they gonna hurt they're not gonna want to hurt our feelings. We're gonna be pushing them or pressuring them. Asking is super dangerous compared. And if you're already having a hard time with the receiving part, asking is the next level of really rough. Yeah, in my opinion. And so I think we should all practice. I think we should start asking for small things. Like my housemate said to me, you don't, since your car accident, you haven't asked for anything. You haven't asked for my help for anything. And I was like, yep, you're right. I don't want to ask you for anything. I don't want to be beholding. I don't want to. And so it was a discussion about my ability to receive and my ability, to do the GoFundMe or whatever. But it was really important for me to be able to say, well, could you take these 3 things to the post office for me and just mail them? And so you don't have to start big. I didn't have to start asking her for rides. Could you do me this one little favor? Could you do me? So I started practicing every day, asking her for one little favor. Could you help me with this? It was not easy. It was not comfortable. It was like building a new neural pathway, which is about repetition. And now it's like, oh yeah, she could probably do that. Oh, she's going to be out. She could pick that up for me so easily. And I'm more than happy when I have a car to pick up whatever to do. I like it. I like being asked, and being able to say yes or no if it works for me, right? Trusting that I could say no and it's not going to crush somebody if I can't do what they want me to do.
Right. It gives us the opportunity to be honest.
Right. So I think the asking needs to be added in there. Like, what percentage do you actually ask for help?
For help, right.
And what happens to you when you even think about that? And can you breathe? Can you bring some space to it? Can you close your eyes and just allow yourself to have a little more space and a little more divine help, maybe even to bring a little more motion to it so that you can say, hey, could you help me out? And trust the person will say no. And if they don't say no and they don't want to, and they say yes when they don't mean to, that's on them. That's not your responsibility.
Right.
It doesn't have anything to do with our side of it, right?
Right.
Boy, we start taking care of other people pretty big time, I think, when it comes to
It'll take us in trouble. It'll get us in trouble, right?
Right. Like, I don't want to ask because they might not want to.
Right. Right. Yeah. Or they're going to remind us later that they did that for us and that we owe them.
Right. Right. Which, maybe they will. Then it's on us to say yes or no, whether we can or can't. But we get caught in all and it's judgment. It's really judgment that spins us out into not trusting at all, and then not actually asking and not really trusting and not receiving, when it's this important flow that's connected to our receptivity, our ability to open. Why is an open heart important is the next important question.
Well, I think that the majority of us would hope that we would either maintain an open heart in some way. Woundedness is so difficult, and so there's so much of it with different people. You could be sensitive and be wounded a lot more than others that are more hard-hearted, right? But keeping that open heart means that, at least to me, that you're more humanized. You have more of that compassion, forgiveness, love, caring, all of that, without the underlying issues that close that heart down. And then you're a better human, hopefully, right? Then you make better decisions based on that. And then there's more connection to our multidimensional parts of ourselves because we're including them and we're learning from them.
Yeah, I agree. We're learning from them. And I think that it really, it speaks to cleaning up those timelines, right? Like if you have a timeline where your heart's been hurt so much that you can't imagine opening your heart, talk about it, clear it up, bring it to someone else to help you clear it so that you can get that heart open again. Because the open heart is bound to have our open heart. When I'm connecting to a multidimensional being, there's a flow.
Right.
And that flow, if my heart is closed, or if I'm super judgmental of myself or someone else, that flow can't flow.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's why multidimensionals are coming forward, is to be more humanized, right? So if you are less judgmental, if you're more receptive, then having that conversation with them or having that connection with them or whatever, just is more of the flow.
Right. Right. But a closed heart would be like a valve that just shuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about, at some point, we'll talk about heart occlusions, that there's what shuts us down, really,
I'm writing it down. So our last question for the day is, how does being receptive or judgmental influence our connections to multidimensional? I think we've already answered that, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think being receptive is the way to have a better connection, being open and
Allowing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that whatever is presented to you in your meditations, in however you're connecting with parts of yourself, the multidimensionals, whenever you are in that open-hearted space, you get, at least for me, there's more information coming in because you're like wide open. You're like in the field, just saying, okay, show me, right? Show me who you are. Show me who I am. Show me something that I could work on.
Right.
You're having a companionship. You're not just two separate parts of yourself that are trying to create a relationship. With an open heart, you have more of a companionship.
Right. Yeah. I love it. I enjoy the companionship I have with multidimensional beings. So, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all. I want to say, don't forget to submit your questions to soulunion.com. Check that out. And it's a great website of Darlene's. And it also has a link for you to email her. And then we'll compile all those questions and we'll do an episode one of these days and answer all those questions.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be great. So that's it for today.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Darlene. Bye-bye.